It is the final and most wonderful FT live of the year. We do this show live every day, Monday through Friday, all year long for 3 years now, officially 3 years on March 1st of 2026. But this will cap our third season of FT. Scotty Braun, Erik, Kratz, Kevin Pillar. If you're listening on the podcast and you never watch us on YouTube, you should come, especially for today, to see Erik Kratz doing his Santa's best. And KP, I don't want to underrate what you've got on your head too.
Thank you. Put it on Santa's tab hat. It's a great hat my wife found. I think it's very fitting for today's episode.
I feel like that's at least one free drink if you go to the bar around Christmas time.
What's a bar, man? I got young kids. I don't even know what outside my little compound looks like.
KP's
Groceries get delivered. We eat at home. I'm on a house arrest.
Yeah. You're on. What do you call it, Kratz? Like treading water or something like that?
Yeah. They're treading water because right now you're just like, when the new baby came, you were like underwater. And you're like, okay, go. Babe, you got this? Great. Oh no, blowout. We're fine. Hold your breath. Oh.
And our baby has like the most insane ability to just sleep 30 minutes every nap, exactly 30 minutes. So it's like we start the timer. That's the only time we're not really underwater. It's like we get stuff done, and then sure enough, baby wakes up 30 minutes later.
Yep. That's the game. Well, this is your little break, okay? I do meetings all day. You've got kids in arms and running around all day, and then you get a little 2-hour break to talk ball. So appreciate everyone that's been watching all year. And we still will have plenty of content from Christmas through New Year's. We've recorded a bunch of fun little things that you'll hear on podcast platforms and on YouTube, but we did have moves since we last spoke. Let's charge.
Charging the mound.
Jeff McNeil traded to the Sacramento Athletics. First off, KP, you played with McNeil, right?
Yeah, I did. We played together in New York.
Okay. And you played with, I guess, most of the long-tenured Mets who are now gone. So this continues to unravel. We are going to give good love to the A's side and what their lineup looks like, which I think is pretty good. But let's start with the Mets dismantling their core. What do you think about it? What does it tell you?
I think it has a lot more to do with who's running the team and David Stearns. Obviously, Steve Cohen at the top, but he brings in someone like David Stearns. And, sometimes people that are as successful as he is and has done what he's been able to do, when they inherit a team with a lot of really good players on it and it doesn't work, or if it does work, sometimes they like to kind of strip it down and kind of bring in their own guys and leave their own fingerprint. I think this is a lot more to do with David Stearns and wanting to leave his fingerprint on the Mets organization more than maybe some of these rumors that you see about a lot of these pieces not really fitting together. Because when I was there, yes, every team's going to have some, arguments and behind closed doors, fights or disagreements and stuff. But, a lot of these players that are no longer there were really good players, and they all kind of fit in. It was a bunch of different unique personalities, but when it came to playing ball, these guys love playing ball and love winning. And I know ultimately they haven't won, but I think this has to do more with trying to leave his fingerprint on bringing in his guys.
But they won recently. Like, I get it, they didn't win this year. And I don't think anything was so bad and so egregious that this past year was like, we got to get rid of 4 of our most productive players, let alone fan favorites. Like, for McNeil, he had a 111 OPS plus. Like, he was above league average. Yes, his defense was what it was. There was some tiffs. You would see some of his, emotion. You got to have guys that have emotion. So the fact that David Stearns came in here and has now dismantled a very huge core of this team, he still hasn't dismantled 2 of the biggest core pieces in Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. The biggest question will be for him, and because I know Stearns, I don't feel like he's coming in going, my fingerprint needs to be on this. A lot of GMs have that, and president of baseball operations have that, like, this is me. I want to be me. I want to show everybody who I am, and this is my kind of team. He's more of, I want to build something that's sustainable. I want to build something that wins not just this year, but for the next 15 years. And I think sometimes those decisions are not always the most popular decisions at this moment. Saying all that, he needs to definitely come up with a lot of value to be able to fill in for the guys that he's lost. When you figure Nimmo's 27 home runs, when you figure what Pete Alonso has done and what he did in this past year, when you figure in Jeff McNeil, I get it, it's been a while since he won a batting title, but he's still an above average hitter and the best, if not one of the best closers in the game, and Edwin Diaz, all gone. To fill in for those, Luke Weaver and Devin Williams, good start. There's a lot he needs to do on this offense. That was actually pretty good last year. It's the starting pitching that cooked them. So it'll be interesting. But another piece out of the Mets is gone.
Okay. KP, Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor got into it several years ago, and then it was reported that they got into it again this past year. They're one of a billion get into it situations that occur throughout a baseball season, but they're in New York, so some of them have become public. It's hard to dissect how to view this one. Is it just because the Mets want to clear some more money and get David Stearns, his own guys in there? Or is there also a factor to switch up personalities involved in the clubhouse? I mean, if there are two guys that go at it every once in a while, do we like it? Is it good? Is it healthy? Or do they prefer to have two bestest friends that are either a double play combo or, in the lineup together frequently?
I mean, I think all these things are fair, but they also really didn't have a place for Jeff McNeil. You bring in someone like Marcus Semien, who's going to play every day second base. You have a Mark Vientos and a Brett Beatty are going to be kind of competing for third base. Jeff McNeil is a fine outfielder. Is he a Gold Glove caliber outfielder? No, but he's kind of a jack of all trades, could kind of fit in anywhere. This could just be more about he just kind of became the odd man out in, the way their roster was configured. But I really do like the moves on the A's side, because I do think the young core of the A's players is something promising. I think once they're able to kind of build a pitching staff around them, and I don't think that's really going to happen until they move to Vegas, because I don't think there's a ton of free agents wanting to sign in Sacramento at this point, given how hitter-friendly it is, how kind of far behind it is on their facilities. But I do love what they're going to be able to do from the offensive side. You have guys like Jeff McNeil and Jack Wilson who just are really tough outs, who put the ball in play. And you think about the guys around them. I think they're going to be able to score a lot of runs, and they're going to need to be able to score a lot of runs to win games because their pitching staff isn't quite there yet.
What do you think of the A's heading into next year, Kratz? If they just wipe out May, they would have been close to a playoff team this past season. They need more pitching. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the lineup is a playoff-worthy lineup.
I would say so. I think they have a good mix of what KP just said. I mean, McNeil will pop you 10 to 12 home runs. Jacob Wilson will pop you 10 to 12 home runs. So those are the contact guys. I think Rook has been just that solid DH for this team. And then with the emergence of Nick Kurtz last year, you have an aircraft carrier that makes Brent Rooker the guy that you're like, I mean, who do we go after here? I guess my better matchup is against the lefty. I'll try to go after Nick Kurtz. I think they have a good lineup. I think Soderstrom's full year of being in the big leagues after a full year of being in the big leagues will be huge. And I think Law Dog is going to have a bounce back year. They have a great lineup. But man, you can't win. Like you can't win the way they were trying to win last year. Whatever, if it's Sacramento or not, KP will tell you, if you're standing out in the field in Sacramento, Toronto, Philly, wherever it is, and you just scored 7 runs and you're losing 8-7 in the 7th inning, it's draining. It drains on you. It just drains on you watching more guys run in from the bullpen, watching more runs get given up, and it's a track meet out there. So they have to find a way to get quality innings from their starters, but also be able to just flat out give up less runs. And they get rid of JP Sears. They got rid of their lockdown closer and Mason Miller. So yes, you get rid of May and all that stuff is great. Like, you had a decent season. Try to finish an entire season, not just the last month and a half, 2 months without Mason Miller. They had a stopgap close. I mean, they had the guy that stopped the game in the 9th inning in Mason Miller, and now they don't have it. They got a lot of work to do on the pitching side. It's another team that I'm going to be pushing that over all year next year.
Yeah, that park's tough. Did you get time there, KP?
Yeah, I played there. I played there early, so it was a little cooler when I was there, but it's still a launching pad. I mean, runs are always going to be flying on the board there. It's hard to, it's much like Colorado. There and you're expecting to score a lot of runs. And to Kratz's point, when you're someone that's in the field, whether you're in the outfield or infield, and guys are just running around the bases, you're constantly going to the bullpen, it does affect your offense over the course of the year, the more you're standing on your feet. So, I love their offense. We forgot about Shea Langoliers, also a really good player. The guy's capable of hitting 30 home runs. So, like, you think about their lineup from top to bottom, they have right and left, contact. They have some speed. They have some pop. They're going to score runs. It just comes down to if they can get enough pitching. You saw what happened when they went out and signed Severino. They had to severely overpay, and then they got a frustrated player when he actually got to Sacramento and played. I think if they do a good job and just continue to kind of lock these guys up and kind of build for 2 or 3 years from now, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be really good, but they got to find a way to get pitching. And I don't know much about their minor league depth in pitching, if they have options that they're able to bring up. But it's tough shoes to fill when you have a guy like Mason Miller leave. And even JP Sears, very reliable. Is he an ace on a staff? No. But sometimes you need guys that can make their 32 starts and, throw 180 innings a year.
Yeah, right now their pitching's not close. I'm looking as you guys are talking. But hitting-wise, everybody in the lineup was above average by a pretty nice margin, besides the bottom 3 in the regular order, which would include Lawrence Butler, who was more of a league average guy this past season with the bat. And then they have Max Muncy pegged at third, the other Max Muncy, and Denzel Clark, who's sick in center field. Everybody else is nicely above average if you go off numbers like weighted runs created plus or OPS plus. So they're building something nice with the core. They should do some spending on the free agent market. I'm not saying they're going to go out and spend $150 million on a starter, but they have a lot of work to do. You guys are right. I don't know if they're going to do it, but we'll see in January. Let's get to Ken Rosenthal coming up next. Here we go, the Inside Scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal, the last one of 2025. And Ken, let's start by pushing forward a move that was just made. What do you think about the A's acquiring Jeff McNeil and the Mets continuing to dismantle their core with Jeff McNeil, a longtime member of the Mets, now moving on?
Well, first off, the A's, they were looking for a second baseman, maybe a third baseman too. So McNeil certainly fills a hole for them. And I saw David Forst, their general manager, say that maybe he can be what Ben Zobrist was for a previous A's team, I think back in 2014 or so. I don't know about that. I don't know that McNeil is at that level of performance that Zobrist was then. But I see what they're doing here, adding the veteran who can help stabilize what has been, as you guys just were talking about, an emerging lineup. And certainly with a guy like McNeil who's been there, done that, it should only help. Now, the Mets, we knew this was coming. They basically had signaled that they were going to trade McNeil. They really didn't have a place for him anymore the way they once did. And it just is another person that was there a long time, another homegrown fixture who is out the door. It's, of course, kind of a whole thing now, right? Nimmo, Alonso, McNeil, all homegrown, all career-long Mets. Edwin Diaz was not homegrown. He was acquired in a trade, but certainly he had been there a while as well. They obviously are trying to change things around in a big way, and not just from a performance standpoint. They clearly did not like what was going on in the clubhouse. You can say, well, the clubhouse was certainly fine in 2024, and it was. 2025, for whatever reason, was different, and it's not Juan Soto walking in the door that sent the Mets crumbling. It's just a situation where they obviously feel things had gotten stale, things had gotten sour, and they have taken steps, rightly or wrongly, to make some changes.
I mean, obviously, yes, they didn't make the playoffs. Yes, whatever. We don't know exactly what was happening in the clubhouse other than, stories and innuendos and all that stuff. But how does David Stearns actually replace the production that is now off the roster? Because it just keeps piling up. And I get it, Jeff McNeil didn't have a position, so it's fair. But how do you actually, because you have to actually replace that production that just keeps piling up on David Stearns here.
Erik, you're absolutely right. And we're all waiting to see what the Mets are going to do here. Jorge Polanco is not going to be their last move. And I had to chuckle a little bit in the notes column that I wrote with Will Salmon this morning. We mentioned that what they're looking for is a right-handed hitting first baseman. Who does that describe? How about the guy who just walked out the door, Pete Alonso? Clearly they want a different look, a different vibe, whatever it is they're looking for. And they're going to need to do some things. I don't know what it's going to be. They seem averse to long-term deals for pitchers and for hitters, free agents. But you're right, Erik. Their production has gone down. It's interesting. If you look at Fangraphs and you go to the individual team WAR pages or the rankings of the team by WAR, they're still a top 10 team by that measure. We'll see if it translates. We'll see what else they do. But yes, I think everyone agrees that they have a lot that they still must get done.
Hey, Ken, when you talk about needing a right-handed hitting first baseman, is that Jorge Polanco, or do they see him more as a $20 million platoon at first base?
Polanco's part of the solution there, but they would like to add a right-handed hitter in addition to him. They have said basically from the beginning with Polanco, he'll be at first base some, but not exclusively. So with him being a switch hitter, they can do some things, move him around, DH him. I expect he'll DH a good amount with the Mets. And we'll see, again, how they put the pieces back together, because that's what they have to do here. And Erik just asked about the production. He was talking about the offensive production. Let's not forget, the reason this team crumbled last season was their pitching crumbled. Their starting pitching in particular. And that is why after June, whatever that date was, when they were the best team in the major leagues, they did not end up that way. So yes, they have to address their starting rotation and maybe even some more help in the bullpen as well to go with Devin Williams and what they've done there.
To sum it up, Ken says the Mets have a lot to do, so it'll be exciting. It'll be an exciting new year for us to watch. But my last question on this is the A's part of this. Last year at this time, the A's signed, or maybe a little bit sooner, they signed Luis Severino. And KP brought it up that it was kind of maybe a little bit of a larger contract than what he needed to get, but it was also like, hey, the A's need to spend money. Is there still that issue, or did the A's spend that money last year and then now no one's really even looking at that because they clearly need to spend a lot on pitching?
Erik, I wrote about, a year and a half ago, maybe it was a year ago, that their plan was to ramp up in the years preceding their move to Las Vegas. They ramped up a little bit last year, obviously, but when you ramp up, you were going upward on a ramp. You're not kind of going, staying the same. They're not showing that upward mobility that I anticipated. And at some point, I'm going to get back to them and address that in some form, because John Fisher, their owner, he has said everything's going to be fine once they get to Vegas. Well, you've got to put a competitive team on the field, preferably before then, but certainly by then. You want to open that new ballpark with a competitive team. They're getting there. Their core, as you guys mentioned, is really intriguing on the offensive side. It's exciting, but they have a lot of work to do. And yes, they should be spending more money than they are. I don't think there's any question about that.
Ken, let me ask you about the Red Sox and the Cardinals. They've already made a trade. Obviously, there's history there with the front offices. Do you anticipate some more trades? And then I kind of ask you: Brian Bayo's been quietly shopped? Do you see him being a fit for the Cardinals and maybe a return package for a Brandon Donovan?
Kevin, they've made two trades with the Red Sox and Cardinals, between the Red Sox and Cardinals, since Chaim Bloom has taken over. And it's the Sonny Gray trade, the Wilson Contreras trade. And we reported last night in our notes column that, yes, they have discussed Brendan Donovan as well. Now, doesn't mean they're going to complete a trade for Brendan Donovan, those two teams. The Cardinals could trade him somewhere else. Maybe it's Seattle, maybe it's San Francisco, two teams that Katie Wu of The Athletic has mentioned as front runners. Could be another team entirely. But it's so interesting, the dynamic that is in place between the Red Sox and Cardinals, because of course, Chaim Bloom, having been previously the Red Sox chief baseball officer, is well acquainted with their system, and some of the players he has acquired are players that he brought in when he was with the Red Sox. So they've had a lot of talks. That's why Donovan's name has come up. I'm sure the Red Sox see him as potentially a good fit, but at the same time, as Craig Breslow said last night in a news conference with reporters, the Red Sox have made 10 trades, most of them minor, but you can't keep trading from your system. And Brendan Donovan would cost more in prospects than Contreras or Gray did. So I expect, and I've written, that their next move should be a big free agent hitter, whether it's Bregman or Bichette, even someone else. But that is the way they should go at this point, because again, they've traded enough from their system where they would probably be better suited now making a free agent signing.
Is it something you see a lot in the game when assistant GMs or people part of certain organizations move on? They find common ground to make a lot of trades. Obviously, they know the farm system very well.
You do see it, Kevin. It's not that uncommon. And I didn't answer your question about Bayo. He's a guy that the Red Sox say they are not shopping, but because they have a good amount of young pitching, they're getting hit on those guys, and his name has come up often in those discussions. That's what we reported. I don't know that they're going to trade him, but there is a certain logic to it, whereas they have now at the top of the rotation, Crochet, Gray, and Oviedo. They've got Crawford coming off an injury, and they've got Patrick Sandoval coming off an injury, and they've got the two kids, Connolly Early and Peyton Tolley, who are kind of ready to go. So could I see a Bayo trade happening? Potentially, yes. I don't know that it would be for Brendan Donovan. I don't know that the Cardinals even want to take on an affordable contract like the one Bayo has. But to answer your second question here, yes, you definitely see GMs who go to another place or come from another place having a certain attachment to players from their past. You also see it with players that maybe they drafted before. And some people have speculated before the Orioles signed Pete Alonso that maybe Mike Elias with Baltimore would want to sign Kyle Tucker because if he has that connection going back with him, he drafted Kyle Tucker. Didn't happen. Probably not going to happen now that they've kind of set their team up a little bit, still needing some pitching. But you do see that often in the game.
All right, back to some trades, and you said maybe the Red Sox don't want to pay as much for a trade as Brendan Donovan would cost. Ketel Marte and Brendan Donovan are clearly the two options that are out there right now. Can you assess the value of each of those based on the fact that Ketel Marte is at a completely different place, probably a much better player overall, but Brendan Donovan is a younger player with 2 full years of control. So are teams balking at both of those, or is it more of a wait to see where Alex Bregman goes, and then we'll fill in our lineup and our position player stats with one of these two guys?
Erik, these are all excellent questions. I'm not sure I have the answers. Now, the one thing you're talking about there, which is really interesting, is the comparison between the two. Brendan Donovan is more of a super utility guy at this stage of his career. He can play any number of positions. Second base, of course, is one of them. He's played outfield as well. He is a guy, as you mentioned, with 2 years of control left, whereas Marte is signed for 6 more years. Now, people say, oh, that's too long for a guy who's 32 years old. Yes, but his contract is so affordable that, as we wrote today, even if he's productive for only 3 or 4 more years, he probably would pay for himself in that regard. The difference with Marte is the Diamondbacks want young pitching in return. They aren't going to trade him, I believe, unless they get that young pitching. But he's a guy that they are seemingly motivated to move because of that 10-5 rights that kick in with him 10th day of the season. He becomes a player with 10 years of service, 5 consecutive with the same team, and then you get full no trade protection. You can effectively decide your fate if the team wants to move you. So there is a motivation there to trade Marte. There's a different kind of motivation for the Cardinals to trade Donovan, and the motivation there is he is simply their most attractive piece. He is the guy who would bring them the most, and the 2 years of control, very enticing for clubs, and the fact that he can bounce all over. I wrote this today. We wrote this together, Will and I. Marte is not a great fit for Seattle because Seattle wants to play their youngster Cole Young at second base. But Donovan is a good fit because Donovan doesn't have to play just second base. So it's a real interesting dynamic with those two guys right now. Do I expect they both will be traded? I actually do.
Yeah, I'm looking through your notes right here, and I see the Braves not being a fit for them. And kind of on that topic of David Stearns kind of changing up the roster configuration, it's even tough for me to say it because the Braves are near and dear to my heart. It was one of the best years of my career in terms of the way all the pieces fit. The clubhouse is the best I've ever been in. I love Ozzy Albies to death, but Ketel Marte is a better player than he is. Could you see Alex going out and making kind of a move to kind of maybe change up, what's been there for so long and bringing in a Ketel Marte?
I don't see it, but Kevin, you're right. There is some sense to it. And the reason I don't see it is because the Braves are so reluctant to give up young pitching after especially what happened last year when really their entire rotation went down. But yes, Ketel Marte at this stage is a better player than Ozzy Albies. Ozzy Albies, though, is important to that clubhouse, as you know, and he's also well below market in what he's getting in his contract. It's a $7 million salary this year. They hold a $7 million option on him for next year. That's a pretty good rate, a really good rate for a guy who, while he had a horrible first half, had a really good second half, or one that was in line with his career averages. So I don't see it happening, but at the same time, Kevin, we both know this too, and Erik knows it, and Scott knows it. Trades do come out of nowhere. So if there is a team that trades for Ketel Marte or Brendan Donovan or anyone else for that matter, that we haven't linked to them, that we haven't heard about, it wouldn't surprise me. These are really good players that teams want and will do things to make room for them. I just don't know that the Braves will be one of those teams.
My question for you is going to put me in a tongue twister for names, so stick with me because you're the king of names. But Kazuma Okamoto and Munetake Murakami are closely tied. Murakami just signed for $34 million for 2 years. Everybody knows his power and all this stuff, and everyone said, "Oh, he strikes out too much." Is Okamoto, the fact that he makes more contact, going to get more interest because now the negative, strikeout, which every team strikes out, is off the board? Or is it something that his versatility and his defense is what's going to get him more than $34 million? And if you know, what teams are kind of linked to him?
In some ways, there are fewer questions with Okamoto than there are with Murakami. Now, there's a much greater upside with Murakami because of that monster power he has. But Okamoto is a high contact guy who, from what I've read, I haven't seen him play at all, really. He can handle third base, maybe have to move to first eventually, but he's passable. So with Murakami, the questions were a little bit more intense regarding his defense at third. He's going to play first for the White Sox. Now, Okamoto is 4 years older than Murakami. And one of the reasons so many people thought Murakami would do really well was his age. This is entering his age 26 season, and yet he only got that 2-year, $34 million deal. I do expect Okamoto will do better than that, and I do think it might come from the Pirates or some other team that is not necessarily on anyone's radar, much like the White Sox weren't. We've heard about the Pirates' interest really from the start of the offseason, and I don't know if they're going to ultimately land him. He might be like all of the domestic free agents who think, well, if I have a better option, why would I want to go to Pittsburgh? But Pittsburgh is a little bit more enticing after the 2 trades they've made. Oviedo and then Mike Burrows. They get Brandon Lau. They get the password from Boston. They've got some things happening. Jake Mangum came in the Burrows trade as well as a reliever, Mason Montgomery. And of course, they have that great rotation, or the promise of a great rotation, with Paul Skeens at the top. So maybe Okamoto sees them a little bit differently. Maybe other free agents start to see them a little bit differently. His date where he needs to sign by is January 4th. So he's got a couple of weeks left. And we'll see ultimately where he lands. But I don't know that he's going to struggle as much in the market as Murakami did. We'll see. It's kind of a mystery, as it was with Murakami.
All right, Ken, this is a question I've asked you probably the last 3 years around this time. Are you able, but we have tons more followers and subscribers now, so are you able to take this next week off? Or do you just keep your phone at a little bit of a lower volume, and if you miss a little scoop here or there over Christmas, you're fine with it?
Well, Erik, as you know, I don't like to reveal much about my personal life. But I will tell you this. I will shut it down, and if my phone rings, I'll pick it up maybe, but I'm not going to be doing much. So that's the way it's going to be. And actually, when I do take off, and it's only really 2 weeks a year, a little bit more than that maybe, I have to shut it down. Otherwise, I'll never get away from it. And because we all know moves will happen between Christmas and New Year's, they do every single year, maybe some big moves this year because of so much that is still pending. But at some point, even I have to walk away, and I will.
Good for you, Ken.
Good. And I hope that some front offices do the same, because there are 52 weeks in the year. And we've talked about this, Ken, since I've known you on any platform we've been on together. Can we get 1 week? I'm actually only asking it for the people that we know are hustling behind the scenes and never get enough credit and always work too hard and don't make that much money. It's people that are in the lower level front office jobs that work 24/7, 52 weeks a year, 1 week. I don't remember if this was on air or not the other day, but Ken, I said, can we have almost like this semi-tampering rule where you can't do real transactions and you're not supposed to talk? You're not going to stop every agent from having a combo with a team, but if you at least set that tone, that blanket, it would stop most of this just for 1 week. Obviously, for us, it's fine. I mean, we're covering the game, but 1 week where we don't have any news that comes out and people can disappear.
Well, Scott, the sport earlier in my career, and I can't remember when this changed, it used to shut down at this time of year. There would be nothing, and it was adhered to. It was just kind of something that was done. And I always joke about this, and I'm not so sure I'm wrong, though. When Jed Hoyer and Theo Epstein went to Kurt Schilling's house that 1 year at Thanksgiving, it seemed to me that the rules kind of changed after that. And it was almost like those guys were, hey, man, look at us. We're working a holiday. We're going to get Kurt Schilling. And they did. And then front offices said, you know what? We're not going to observe holidays anymore. We'll just keep going. Now, I'm not ripping Theo and Jed. They did a great job. And hey, I'm sure others were working the same way back then. But it just seems that at some point it changed. And if you ask people in the game, if you talk to the executives, the presidents of baseball operations, talk to the agents, talk to anyone involved in this time of year in the transactions, they would like a break too. But the way the calendar works, the way the game is set up, with no direction, it seems, from Central Major League Baseball, as far as taking some time, this is the way it's going to be. And I don't think fans care one way or the other. They like hearing the moves, even during Christmas time, of course. But for people in the game, yeah, they could use a break. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it could be done. It could be done. That's my, if I was commissioner for a day, but for another day. Ken,
We've got about 10 other things ahead of that, Scott, but yes, if we were commissioner.
That's the problem. It's too low on the totem pole to address. That is the exact problem. But I'm just trying to think of everyone on the holiday. Have a great holiday, Ken, and Happy New Year to you. We'll see you on One More Fair Territory, I know, later this week.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a great holiday, too.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Fair Territory later this week on Friday will be the last episode of 2025. Swinging right back with a signing.
Show me the money.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
Hey, good for Rob Refsnyder signing a contract with the Seattle Mariners. And, you know, he's one of those specialists. KP, he either bashes or is able to solve left-hand pitching as well as anybody in baseball, and the Mariners recognize that. He's been around the game for a while, and he's really found a fit in terms of how he's able to put together just incredible quality at bats. So the Mariners pick him up. For some reason, I lost where the money was, but I believe, Kratz, do you have it off the top of your head? 1 year.
Million.
What is it? 6.5?
6.5.
Yeah. Nice coin for Rob.
I love everything about it. I played with Rob Refsnyder. I can't even remember when, but he was kind of just up and down. He was still trying to kind of figure out his way in the game. All of a sudden he ended up in Boston, and he kind of found his niche in this game. And I love that. And I remember seeing him in the offseason, I think the year before he signed that 2-year deal with Boston. And he wasn't even sure he wanted to continue to play, not because he didn't love the game. He just had a young family, and as Kratz knows, it weighs on you a lot being gone. And he ended up sticking it out. He found his niche in this game with Boston. He really found his specialty. And I love that he got paid for it, because typically you see guys that even dominate left-handed pitching, because it usually ends up being about a third of the at-bats that a lefty would get. Normally they get shafted on, being a specialist. And I know earlier this offseason we had talked about just the quality of left-handed pitching in the major leagues right now, and majority of them are starting game 1 of the playoffs. You need a guy like this if you're Seattle, if you got to go up against a Erik in game 1 of a wild card series. So good for him for finally, getting a good payday, and good for the Mariners for, paying a guy $6.5 million to platoon, because typically the right-handed platoon guys are the ones that, end up with $2 or $3 million. So good for them paying him $6.5 million.
Yeah. And the fact that he did this at an elite level is my favorite. Like, I'm not saying he's the best one available. I mean, the best right-handed bat available to hit lefties. But when you look at what he did his last 2 years, OPS plus over 130, and people are going to say, well, he's going to get overexposed in Seattle. Seattle had to go through Erik. And they did. They beat him. But you're going to have to go through some quality lefties if you want to win the American League. You are going to have to go through maybe Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Erik, Garrett Crochet. And I'm not even mentioning guys in their division right now. And to me, he's the best one available. And he showed, I had it pulled up, how many, this is a truly, he can go in there, he can face your lefties. But he has played, this past year, he played 43 games in the outfield, 29 of them in right field, so he was bouncing around. He DH'd 20 times, and he played 46 in left field. And he's playing in Boston. That's a tough transition from left field in Boston to right field in Boston. He has really created, since being a minor leaguer in the Yankees organization, when he came up, it was on those minor league teams, it was Tyler Austin, it was Aaron Judge, and he's really good friends with Aaron Judge, Tyler Wade, guys that were all prospects, and some of them have, gone their separate ways, Japan and utility guy and all that stuff. He's really re-upped his value since going to Boston, similar to what Randall Grichuk has done in Arizona. It's hey, you gain that value, and all of a sudden teams see what you can bring, and defensively he's versatile enough. I think this is a huge addition for the Mariners, but it can't be enough. And at 6.4 or 6.5 million, what he got, it's a pretty expensive piece. I love, what KP said, I love that they got him this, but it's a steep price, let's put it that way, for somebody who's only going to face lefties, if you want him to have his most success.
Yeah, I mean, this is speaking my language exactly. One, I know the difficulty of playing right field and left field in Boston, and they're two completely different worlds playing out there. But my point is, a guy like this, you look at his numbers, the 830 OPS, the 130 OPS plus, you can't really put an accurate number on it, because people don't realize the difficulty it is to sit there on the bench, only face left-handed pitching. you are subject to the rotation that you are playing in the upcoming weeks of when you are actually going to get a chance to play. I platooned when I was in Atlanta, and there was days I went 17 days without an at-bat because we didn't face a left-handed starter, or my spot didn't come up with a lefty reliever coming in. So you have to kind of look at that number, and you have to realize the difficulty that it comes with staying ready every single day, not knowing when your number is going to get called off the bench, and then ultimately being only playing when your number's called when a left-handed starter goes. It's really difficult to do. I wish there was like a scale that you could just put a 130 OPS in compared to like a guy who plays every day. Because as Kratzy knows, is a guy who had an opportunity to play every day at some point in his career and also coming off the bench. It's two completely different ball games.
I would love that. I would love that. I wish there was a formula too, because everyone's like, yeah, but you hit this or you hit that. Like, if you take the best superstar and you put him on the bench, like KP said, 17 days in a row, 4 days in a row of not playing, and then 2 more days off and you don't play again, or when you do play, you're facing that lefty, they bring a righty in the 7th and you only got 2 at-bats. I would love to see where that sliding scale of your success goes. It's hard, and so to have the numbers that Refsnyder has at a 138 OPS plus and the year before 131, I bet that's actually higher. You know, we value like defensively or we value in positions. If a catcher has 100 OPS plus, league average, he's league average. But position average, he's above average. Coming off the bench, only facing lefties, if you have that, if you have a 38% higher OPS plus than the rest of the league, to me, that's higher. That's more like a 50% because of how hard it is to come off the bench and be productive for an entire season.
Also, remember that we love using I would say, basic advanced stats like OPS plus or weighted runs created plus is very similar. They do not factor in if you're hitting against left-handed or right-handed pitching. So you can put a little more value on someone who's hitting lefties based off something that's become a trend in the game. Left-handed pitching, tougher than ever to hit. Left-handed pitching specifically has gotten so difficult, right? There's the talent, there's the platooning that gets done with many players. There's a whole mix. There's guys, right? You got rid of the loogies, the guys who really cannot get a righty out. They're not really in the league anymore. So you add everything up, and that is why I think Rob Refsnyder gets 6.5 versus maybe 3.5. Kratz, I'll go back to your other point about the Mariners not enough. I think they're done on the position player side. I mean, I know they didn't bring back Jorge Polanco, but I'm just slicing up the lineup right now and what I think they're going to do. And we know Jerry Dipoto likes to swing a trade. So if there's some crazy opening in terms of someone that's available on the market, he'll have a conversation. But I think it's more likely that they try and load up and trade for maybe yet another reliever. They love Jose Ferrer. And actually, they made a great point, again, talking lefty-righty. Ferrer is someone who can come in as lefty with 3 good pitches out of the bullpen, including, I think, 2 that are plus, after essentially an entire rotation of right-handed starting pitchers. So they just felt like they needed more than most teams do because they want to have, I would say ideally 3 high-leverage lefties, which is difficult to do. So maybe I think they've got 2 now. Maybe they end up getting a 3rd. But anyway, back to the lineup for a second. Randy Arozarena should be playing every day. Cal Raleigh's going to play every day. Julio Rodriguez is going to play every day. Josh Naylor is going to play every day. DH, probably your most common situation here, is Canzone against righties, who actually had a crazy year against righties, and then Refsnyder against lefties. Obviously, Refsnyder can play other positions too, but they've got Victor Robles, who will still probably get a good chunk of time out there. That's the one spot that you could look at as maybe a weaker spot where he could be a 4th outfielder for a first division team versus what he was. JP Crawford's going to play every day. And then you've got 2nd and 3rd. Cole Young, I think, is taking up second base. They love him. I know you're going to make a face, Kratz, because he's young and unproven, but he's one of the top prospects in baseball. And this is his time now. This is his year. He's 22 and a half right now. So next year, I think, will be his age 23 season. And then Ben Williamson over at 3rd. That's where you can make the case. Do they bring Gino Suarez back, even though he wasn't great with them down the stretch? So you don't have 2 super youngsters at 2nd and 3rd. What do you want to see done?
I mean, I said it before, and we'll see in my wish list later on. Ketel Marte, would do for this team what I think the Mariners saw Josh Naylor did for this team. Not taking anything away from Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh was the reason they got to where they were and did what they did. I get it. But when you brought Josh Naylor in and he stole 22 bases in 2 months, when you bring in a guy like Eugenio Suarez, who I think he only had 13 homers in his 50 games he played. I get it. He didn't do well. It changes the look of that lineup for the other team when they're attacking guys. And I think helped Cal Raleigh have success the rest of the season and not fade or get pitched around as much as he should have for a guy that hit 60 homers. To me, I think if you trade for Ketel Marte, I get what they're saying about Cole Young. He looks great. He's a PA guy, so I'm always banging the drum for Pennsylvania guys that need to come up. He's not Ketel Marte. And that's okay. He hit 240 in the minor leagues last year. And that's okay. It doesn't mean he's not ready. It just means he's not Ketel Marte. And it just means the Mariners have too often not done that last little thing. And they did it last year, and look how close they got to making the World Series. This team has the pitching. Ketel Marte puts them over the top. And I said it the other day, I'll say it again later on today. They get him. They are the best team in the American League.
Yep, it's a good call. And hey, I just want to clarify. I completely agree. I think one more move is necessary. Ketel Marte or Brendan Donovan. I'm just not positive they're going to go down that route. I don't think they're going to go down the signing route unless no one likes Geno Suarez and they get him at a discount and they bring him back because they love him. But otherwise, I'm with you. The one piece left, it's Donovan or it's Ketel Marte. I just don't know if they're actually going to do it. I hope they do it. But anyway, let's move on. Let's step aside. We're going to get to the Washington Nationals, who are quite popular still for some additions that can be made for other teams via trade. It's the Nationals offseason to-do list with Andrew Golden, who covers the Nats for the Washington Post. Andrew, great to see you, and I'll let you lay out what you think the Nats are going to do over the next couple months leading up to spring training. I think this is important. Non-Nats fans, pay attention to number one on your list. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, I think in terms of my Nationals to-do list, my number one is I think the Nationals should trade Mackenzie Gore, but keep C.J. Abrams. That's my number one. Number two is acquire a first baseman. That's really important for the Nationals, I think, either by a trade or in free agency. And the third is continue to shape the vision for the team. There's been a lot of changes, and I think that that's a very important goal for them moving forward.
All right, I'll start off. Explain number one, trade Gore, keep Abrams. What makes you say that?
Yeah, I think with McKenzie, I think, first of all, obviously pitcher injuries are very common, so you don't want to ever risk losing value in a guy, especially a pitcher who has the caliber of Mackenzie Gore. And as we've seen during free agency, teams really value potential and they value stuff. Mackenzie Gore has that. He has a swing and miss stuff. He has 2 years of team control, and he's pretty cheap comparatively to a lot of the free agent relievers that are out there. The free agent starters that are out there on the market, like a Framber Valdez, MI, guys like that. And so I think that it'd be valuable for them to trade, McKenzie while they have the opportunity to do so. CJ Abrams, on the other hand, I think that they can develop him a lot more. I think his defense, he's been one of the worst shortstops in baseball since he debuted in 2022. But I think he has a lot of potential that he could unlock to improve, because I don't necessarily see that he's that bad when I watch him just from the eye test. And then offensively, he's a really talented player. I think there's another level that he can unlock. And so I would hold on to him, see if he can improve his value, for another season, and then maybe see what the market looks like next year. But I don't see any need to trade CJ right now. But with McKenzie, I definitely think that they should.
All right, I'm gonna follow up on that, and it kind of goes down to your last question too. They went out and made kind of a unorthodox hire in their manager, Jake Butera. Do they believe that he is the guy for the next X amount of years? Hiring someone so young with not a ton of experience. And the follow-up question is, if they do trade Mackenzie Gore, is this someone they're trying to bring into the organization that's going to help them today, or are they building for 3-4 years out? And is Butera the guy who's going to be there to see it through?
Yeah, I think Butera has obviously shown that he really can develop guys, and obviously that's part of the appeal of trying to hire a guy like him is that he is good at development. So I think that when you look at what the long term goals are, I think the goal is to develop the Nationals, and the players that they have internally and the players that they draft and develop into like really big league contributors who can help them down the line. So I think Butera is here to see this through, and so I think that when you're looking at what they could get into return from Mackenzie Gore, like I think the goal is to do things that will set them up to help them in the future, and so whether that is somebody who is, just like Harry Ford, who doesn't have a lot of big league time and has like 6 years that they can get out of him. I think if he can help right now, then sure, if it fits within their timeline. But I think they also could acquire guys who are in the minor leagues and could be good in a couple of years. I think their goal is not to compete right now or even next year, but I think looking a couple of years down the line. And so I think whatever helps them fit that vision.
All right. Well, then leading into your second point, then acquiring a first baseman. Is it going to be another stopgap first baseman? I get it. Pete Alonso is not available anymore, but I felt like Pete Alonso was going to be that. And we always use it's a lazy narrative that Jason Worth, the guy who you're like, ooh, if I'm a free agent, I'm okay hitting behind Pete Alonso. I'm okay hitting in front of Pete Alonso, whatever it is. So I want to go to what the Nats are building. Is it just going to be another Josh Bell? Is it going to be another, is it going to be Rhys Hoskins because they know him in the NL East? What are we looking for here?
I hate to break your heart, but I would think it'd be another stopgap. That's my guess. I don't think it's going to be like a big name guy. I would be shocked. I mean, maybe there's a potential that they do pull that off, but I would expect it to be somebody who's a stopgap. Maybe even they acquire somebody in a trade. Maybe there's a team that has a surplus of first base that they're willing to acquire. I mean, even the Orioles have Mountcastle. They have Kobe May over there, obviously with Pete Alonso and Rutschman and Basayo and all those guys. And so I think that maybe they're a potential fit maybe. But I would look to, see a stopgap or somebody who they can maybe get in a trade. But I wouldn't expect them to sign like a Pete Alonso or a big name guy. Obviously not Pete Alonso.
Since they're a couple years out, do you see any guys on their current roster that are extension candidates that they could kind of build around, for the future here?
I mean, obviously James Wood's the big one, right? Like, I mean, who wouldn't want to re-sign James Wood to a long-term deal? But when I look at their roster, a couple of guys that intrigue me, Dalen Lyle is somebody who was the NL, I think, hitter of the month in September and was a really good rookie in the second half. I always kind of wonder if it'd be possible to look at him as an extension candidate. And the other guy I look at too is Cade Cavalli. He was a first-round pick in 2020, missed a couple of seasons recovering from Tommy John, but he looked pretty good last year. He has the stuff to be a top-of-the-rotation guy, but he's also dealt with injuries. And so I'm wondering if there's an ability to maybe leverage that and see if there's a way to work out a long-term deal. And so obviously James Wood, I think C.J. Abrams obviously could fit in that if you wanted to extend C.J., but two guys that I think would be interesting would be Dalen Lyle, their outfielder, who I think will be their starting right fielder next year, and then Cade Cavalli, who I think has a lot of potential but has had some injuries.
I love Lyles, like just his fire. He just looks like he's like a little angry at the baseball field when he's out there. So I love that. I love that you said that. Here's my thing. Your third point is continue to shape the vision of the organization. When are we going to see that? Paul Taboni was on our show, and he really not just says the right things, but he kind of commands that presence that I don't think everybody in the Nats' current organization does. When are you going to see something from, or what would be something that you would want to see from Paul Taboni? Because your first point was keep C.J. Abrams. You're also saying maybe we're 3 or 4 years out. C.J. Abrams is a free agent. C.J. Abrams, you're going to basically build C.J. Abrams up for a draft pick as a qualifying offer or a trade in a year. So like, when will we see, or what is one thing that you would want to see the organization do this year by the end of the season that shapes their future vision?
Yeah, I think just invest in technology and really show they can use that technology to actually develop the players that they need to develop. I think they have a lot of young talent internally. And so I think what I want to see is just gradual and steady improvement from those guys. Like if James Wood takes a step forward, if Dylan Cruz takes a step forward, Dalen Lyle, CJ, I think what would be a successful year for them is when you look back and you see these players have gotten better. And that's proof to me that their development plan and what they're putting into place to help these players improve is actually working. The same thing goes for their starting pitching rotation. I think even if they keep McKenzie, Cade Cavalli, and some of the young guys that they have a lot of young guys that they can kind of work and grow and build with. And so I think this year, for me, is just seeing like which of these guys can be impact players down the line. And I think like who can they actually develop? So that's what I'm looking for this year.
All right, kind of off topic, but we just had Ken Rosenthal on, and Scott brought up a good point. How do you feel about maybe a dead period from starting tomorrow through the end of New Year's, where you don't have to work, no transactions could be done, you could step away from your phone, you don't have to write? Are you in on that?
I'd be totally in on that. I actually, funny enough, last year when Nathaniel Lowe got traded, I was actually at a holiday party with my friends. And I had my phone. They said put your phone away for the night. I put my phone down, wasn't looking, and I look at my phone 5 hours later, and Nathaniel Lowe had been traded. I missed everything. So honestly, like I'm actually all for it. I'd be cool with it because I definitely missed the Nathaniel Lowe trade last year.
Well, and the first time you were on, I remember when you were on, you said your mom was watching. So is she still going to be watching what's going on here?
I actually didn't tell her I was going to be on today, so I'm not sure if she's watching. I know my wife is watching, so I told her about it, so I'm sure she's watching.
More important. That is more important.
Yeah.
But your mom probably still wants a phone call to know when you're going to be on, or at least like retweet it and send it to her.
She definitely will. She definitely will.
I love it. Well, Andrew, happy holidays. Great to have you on. Thanks for getting us caught up on the Nats, and we will see you in 2026.
Sounds good. Looking forward to doing it soon. Y'all have a happy holiday.
You too. Appreciate you. Check out Andrew's work in the Washington Post. We'll swing right back. Holiday wish list time. Yes, it's Erik Kratz and Kevin Pillar, Santa's favorite helpers. And Kratz, since you have the exact hat on that we were looking for, and KP's is a little more bad Santa, we are going to let you set the table here. It's a very simple game. It's a wish list. 3 teams, 1 item per team that you would like to see done this holiday season, which at this point will likely occur in January.
Hopefully, because we're not unwrapping any of these gifts yet. Although we could do a little show if the Yankees sign Tatsuya Amai here before Christmas, before New Year's. But I'll come back on for that because I think there is no larger move in the American League East than that. The Yankees are not going to have 2 of their horses to start the season. And if the Yankees want to keep up with the Blue Jays, the Orioles, who are doing things, the Red Sox, well, they haven't traded or haven't signed a big league free agent. They've traded for everybody that they've gotten and keep up in this division. To me, I think it's Tatsuya Amai or nobody on the pitching front. I'm not saying they're not going to go after the other guys, Zach Gallen. I think he'd pitch great in New York, all that stuff. But I just think Tatsuya Amai is the guy that is a scary looking elf. It might be a bad elf, but if you remember the movie Elf, an angry elf, that's what that looks like. But Ketel Marte for Seattle is my second thing on the wish list. We talked about it earlier, but for everybody just listening to just this, Ketel Marte will make the Mariners the best team in the American League, in my opinion. They will be a better team than the Blue Jays because of how that shapes their team, because they have the pitching advantage over the Jays, and that would add something to their lineup that now takes a little bit more pressure off of Julio. I think anything that takes pressure off of Julio from being the man, he becomes more of the man. So I think that would be the top on the Christmas wish list. And the wish list for Boston, Alex Bregman. They've already done their work. They have their first baseman, Wilson Contreras, who's going to add a lot of value, way more value than their first baseman's added last year, and he's actually played a good first base. Alex Bregman, all the young guys on the team are definitely coming back. Everybody knows that. The biggest thing is you can't let him go to another American League team, and so that's one of the reasons you sign him. But also these young guys, each year is a different step in your development, and if you can bring Alex Bregman back, that gives these guys another year talking to Alex. Hey, remember this, making this connection. And it's probably going to be 5 to 6 years. And all these young guys are going to be here for 5 to 6 more years. And, Roman Anthony, he has his extension. Marcelo Meyer doesn't. Cedane Rafaela, he's going to be locked in with this team. So it's like, Alex, we're going to do this together. He can be the unk for all these guys. He can continue to help them when they make it farther in the playoffs. Hey, I know you guys weren't here last year, but this round of the playoffs is exactly the same. So to me, I think he is maybe the most needed position player for a team. And I think Tatsuya Amaya is the most needed pitcher for a team in the America of the three teams, of any of the teams that are out there yet looking for help.
Do you think that the starting pitching market is held up due to the fact that Dylan Cease got a very healthy contract, and it might have elevated what the ask or what the thought process was for reps for the other top tier starters available, and they're not going to get that? Might not be the best example. I do think he is going to end up with close to that level money, but then there's that Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez group. I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen the movement there. Usually you see the one move, KP, and then it's like, okay, here we go. Things were set. But Dylan Cease got the bag from the Blue Jays, and then everything has just kind of halted since then for the free agent starting pitching market. And if anything, we've seen some trades on that front that have been created for teams that are like, I'm not playing in those waters. You know, I'm not paying 180 for this starter for that starter. I'm going to trade some prospect capital and fill the gap that way. And that's smart if they feel that way.
We might look back and the Dylan Cease move to Toronto might be a great deal. It might be a lower deal, a discounted deal, you know. So good for Dylan Cease I always think when you're a free agent of that caliber and you're going to get kind of in that ballpark, you know, at that point is an extra $20 million that significant for someone? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but at least Dylan Cease got to choose the team he wanted to go to. He was the first one to come out, sign his deal, and I definitely think it's affecting the market for a lot of these guys.
I think that's the high end. I think it's Cease and Amai, and then I think the rest of the group's going to place below that. And how much below that is the question, I think, right now that you've got back and forth with teams and agents. But we'll see. What do you have? What's your list looking like?
My Christmas list, okay? You know I'm going to start with the Blue Jays, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Kratz was saying about, you know, bringing Alex Bregman back and just kind of being in this together and building something together. I think the number one thing the Blue Jays need to do is bring back Bo Bichette. I know there's a lot of talk about Kyle Tucker, and maybe Kyle Tucker's a better player than Bo Bichette, but Bo Bichette is a homegrown player. He's one of Vladimir Guerrero's best friend. They've done this together. I think the only thing kind of going against them bringing back Bo Bichette is they showed that they could kind of do it without him down the stretch. I don't think they're in that position without Bo Bichette, you know, playing 90% of the season. And I also think just Bo Bichette fits better in their lineup because I do love Ernie Clement. I do love Addison Barger. If you go out and sign a Kyle Tucker, you know, one of those guys are out of a position. So I do like Bo Bichette if he's willing to play second base. For the Cleveland Guardians, all I see on MLB Trade Rumors and on X and all these social platforms is their need for a right-handed hitting outfielder. Nick Castellanos needs a new home. He no longer has a home in Philadelphia. Can they get him pennies on the dollar, which Cleveland loves to do? And I know Cleveland probably has some prospect capital they can, you know, return for a guy like Nick Castellanos. But you talk about someone who plays the game almost angry at the field, who comes from a winning culture and environment, and also maybe going from an environment in Philly where it's a little bit more, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but maybe a little bit less structured. And it feels like Cleveland with a guy like Jose Ramirez at the head of it, Stephen Vogt at the head of it, maybe they could find the best version of Nick Castellanos. And lastly, for the Detroit Tigers, I think they need to go out and sign Zach Gallen. They already have the best pitcher in the world. Zach Gallen has shown the ability to be an ace. He would be a great guy riding shotgun for Tarek Skubal and allow the Tigers to maybe finish what they had started, knowing that Tarek Skubal is a free agent at the end of the year. And maybe he becomes the replacement if Tarek Skubal ends up, you know, walking at the end of the year. I love Zach Gallen and what he's able to potentially do. Much different ballpark pitching in Detroit than it is, you know, in the the National League West. That entire division is a little bit more pitcher friendly. So I think Zach Gallen has a lot in the tank. And maybe he can learn a little bit from Tarek Skubal and the other guys around him. And they already have a pretty good rotation, but I think this could be, number 2 that you're looking for in that rotation.
Creative. I like it. Remember, they did something similar with Jack Flaherty. You give him some money, you give him the opt-out possibility. Jack didn't take it. I think that's what it's going to take for Zach Gallen. Michael King ends up with 3 years, $75 million. The first year of that deal is, I think, about $22 million. And then ideally for him, he shoves this year and he opts out and he gets much more. For the Padres, if he shoves, great. That worked out probably as a year where he was worth double, right? If he ends up being the guy that he is. For Zach Gallen, if he looks more like the last 2 months of the season, Zach Gallen, probably the same thing. So I think Detroit could craft something, KP, that makes sense for both sides. It puts Gallen in a spot where he gets a little bit of the added security. Maybe it's an extra year or two, and then he still gets the 20 some odd $20 million to pitch next year and go back into free agency.
Yeah, when I thought of it, I thought exactly of the Jack Flaherty deal. Like, he didn't have the best year going into free agency, but let's give him a good amount of money with the opt out. If he performs, great. He'll walk. If he doesn't, Jack Flaherty, I forget what he's making. He's probably making somewhere around $20 million the next couple of years. I believe he has the ability to bounce back and be the Jack Flaherty that we saw 2 years ago. So it's just a great signing. And I feel like Detroit's been able to do that with a guy like Flaherty. Go and do it with Zach Gallen.
Yeah, opted back in for 20 mil, by the way. Kratz, yes, for Flaherty.
Yeah. My question to you, the Bo Bichette one. I'm not saying the Blue Jays shouldn't bring him back. I'm saying you said have him play second base. Do you think if you bring back your shortstop on shortstop money, they'd be okay playing him at second base because he's been the Blue Jays shortstop? Or do they just have to steer clear of that because they don't see him as a shortstop anymore? Because Andres Gimenez is a big league shortstop. They brought him in. I think partially the reason you took on his large contract from the Guardians was because he can play shortstop in the big leagues and Bo was leaving. So if you bring Bo back, do you think the Blue Jays have enough cojones to say, thanks for playing shortstop for us for the last 6 years, go to second base?
I mean, I think money talks. I think if they pay him like a shortstop and they play him at second base, I think if there's ever an organization, in my opinion, being around him, if they could present a case through whatever sort of data that they have that is going to get the best version of Bo Bichette playing second base, whether it's, the health on his legs or his ability to play longer and make more money, however they want to sell him on it. I get your point, though. It is very difficult. If I was in a situation like that where I was a team's everyday center fielder and I thought of myself as a center fielder, and I'm just thinking out loud as I'm looking behind you. They did it with Brandon Nimmo. They signed him as a center fielder shortly after they moved him to left field. And I know and the Marcus Semien, kind of the same thing. They signed him as a shortstop, played him at second base. I know those guys have kind of flip-flopped, but I think ultimately if you sign him as a shortstop to play second base in terms of shortstop money, I don't think there's a big deal with it.
This is going to sound so annoying, but I'm going to explain how this gets calculated by at least half the front offices in baseball, if not more. They have either wins above replacement or a version of that to calculate value for a player and projections, right? We talk about this pretty frequently, Kratz. This isn't anti-numbers. It's actually just explaining how things are looked at. The way that, let's use, say, Fangraphs values WAR per 162 games at shortstop versus second base, it's about a 5-run difference, and 10 runs equals 1 win. So that's about a half of a win difference. Let's say, and again, teams value this differently too, a win is worth what, Kratz? $10 million? It's not exactly like that because obviously if a player's a 5-win player, it's 50, but
8 to 10
on the free agent market. Yeah, let's just say that, right? It gets used as a guide. They're essentially saying that they should dock $5 million per year over the length of the contract in terms of the value of Bo Bichette. Now, that's not the way a free market works, but that is the way that most teams come up with the same numbers for the same players. How did I do with explaining that?
Spot on.
It was very good. Very good.
And you said a free market. How about a market with collusion? Because everybody knows the number and formula you just put in. And that's how they're looking at him. And that is unfair to Bo Bichette. Yes, he said it. He said, I will play second base. But you know what else he said? It's like that kid who's like, yeah, I'm not lying. And then he pulls his fingers out like, yeah, I'll play second base, but you're paying me as a shortstop. Like, don't look at me as a second baseman, but I'm willing to do whatever. It's just like Josh Hader said, I'm a closer. I'm going to throw 1 inning. You sign me, Houston Astros, I'll throw 2 or 3 innings, whatever you want, because I'm signed. Same thing with Bo Bichette. Sign me for what I've done, because that's the only thing that you can do. You don't know what my future is going to be. And if you want to play me in left field, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't think Bo Bichette's going, my legacy is as a shortstop. No. His legacy is the fact that he made it to a place where only 10% of big league players ever make it to, and that's free agency to get a large long-term deal. So he played shortstop his entire time. You want him to play second base, and you think his bat and his 100 RBIs that he's going to bring you and close to 300 batting average are enough, you're going to have to pay him as a shortstop. Sorry. That's just the reality of life.
Yeah,
Okay,
his real legacy is in the batter's box. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're paying him for. You're paying
Hold
him
up.
to go to. You're paying him to step up to home plate 600 times a year. You can pencil him in for 300, close to 200 hits, and he's going to drive in 100 runs. Whether you want to play him at shortstop, second base, left field, right field. And I love your point. We as an industry always want to, and I know you have to do it when you're paying players money. You're trying to predict what the player's going to do out, but no one knows what the future holds. Really, you're paying for someone for what they had done in the past. And what he had done in the past is play shortstop. So you have to pay him as a shortstop, which if the Blue Jays are willing to do and move him to second base, they'll do it.
Let me present the other side. Why am I paying you shortstop money if you're going to be a second baseman, either moving forward or for the majority of the deal?
That's your choice. That's your choice. Because now you're starting to get in. That's a team's choice to do that. And if that's the case, then you don't want him. You don't want his 100 RBIs and 200 hits.
Yes, I do.
To lead the league.
I do want him. I want him at second base because I think that he can be an above-average defender at second base, where he is a below-average defender at shortstop, and I think that will make my team best. And then the call also includes a little, is there any other team that is signing you as a shortstop? Maybe there isn't.
Let me ask you this question. So we're talking years and money. What's the difference between Bo Bichette as a graded out bad defender at shortstop or a plus defender at second base? Like, what does that formula look like?
Right.
It's big. I'm gonna go
like
to the
just physically standing at shortstop and being a bad defender at shortstop as opposed to being a plus defender at second base is going to cost them that much?
I mean, you're talking about the difference in, I know it's an age, and I just got this real quick, but the difference in Marcus Semion's contract and Corey Seager's contract. Corey Seager got more years, but Marcus Semien gets $175 million and Corey Seager gets 300 plus. So the industry rates it like that. The industry rates it like that.
I don't think they're comparable players. I think Corey Seager is a much,
they're not. They're not. But
I'm just trying to figure out what, if I'm a team and I'm like, okay, yeah, I could pay him X amount to play shortstop, but he's not going to be a great defender at short. Throw out the bat, the base running, all the other things, but he can be plus at second base, which in his short time during the postseason, he showed his ability to play a great second base. I'm just trying to figure that out because I don't know if there's really been a compare. I mean, Marcus Semien is probably the most obvious comparable going from shortstop to second, but if Marcus Semien stayed at shortstop, who was not a great shortstop in terms of his metrics, I don't think he's getting Corey Seager money because I don't think they're comparable players.
I think the easiest way to look at it is if Bo Bichette is signing with a big market team, they are likely trying to sign him for an extended period of time, so that lowers the luxury tax number, right? So if he's 27, then he does end up signing a 10-year deal, even though the end of the deal could look ugly, as it could for Trey Turner and so many of these other guys that signed deals that were maybe a couple years longer than the market says, but it extends the luxury tax number to keep them from paying basically bills to the Marlins, Pirates, A's, etc. for them to pocket, right? That's how that game works. So let's say he signs a 10-year contract. Just to play simple math of 1 win, 10 mil, half of that is 5, difference between second and short. $5 million over a 10-year period is 50 mil. So if you're on a conversation and he's talking to, say, 5 teams, they might all say, hey, Bo in the past at short is valued at 225. We've got him at 175 because we want him to play second base. I do think whether they express that super publicly and not as basic or not, that is how teams try and calculate this nowadays.
So when you were talking, I thought about a fair comparison. Maybe a Xander Bogaerts to him. Played shortstop, but then when the emergence of Ha-Seong Kim, he moved over to second base. I know he's back at shortstop, but maybe that's a scenario where you're talking about money differential. If Bogaerts would have signed it as a second baseman, what would he have gotten as opposed to being a shortstop?
Yeah, so he signed for 11,280, right? So it's the same concept. Maybe then he's valued at 11,230. And I've heard and read from good insiders that Bogaerts' deal is not a good comparison for almost anything because there was an owner essentially on his deathbed, unfortunately, who really wanted to win and said, fuck it, just spend way more than everyone else to get some guys and let's see if we can make a quick run. So the rest of the market might have had Xander Bogaerts as a $220-ish million player, $200 million player, whatever it is. And the Padres just threw a massive number out there. And I think Bogaerts was like, oh my God, that is not what we had pegged for this offseason. It's a good idea, but I think that's how this is being valued right now. Because you're right, KP, Bogaerts played shortstop for a while, and there were always those question marks. Like, he's definitely going to have to move off the position. It's just a matter of when, not if.
You can say that about anybody. Everybody's got to move off the position. KP, did you play center field your entire career?
How soon?
No, and there was a point in my career, and ego got involved a little bit too. You always think you're the best man for the job, but I started getting around players that could play the position better than me, and then I had to go to the corner. Doesn't mean I couldn't play center field. Even to my last year, I started opening day last year in center field for a team. Was I the same caliber center fielder I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago? Probably not, but I would hope, knowing Bo, hopefully he would be able to read the room and understand, and being around the team last year, watching what Jimenez was able to do at shortstop and being like, you know what? I'm here to win. I'm making a ton of money. I love being in Toronto. And I'm making the assumption these are things that he wants, but I would hope that he loves the city. He was drafted, developed by that team. He came up with Vladdy. He sees Vladdy's security. He's going to get his security. It's just the best fit for him moving forward. And, you talk about legacy. If he wants to have a legacy, not only in Toronto in the game, it's going to be what he does at home plate. Could he be a 3,000 hit guy? Could he eventually be a Hall of Famer? I mean, his legacy is not going to be determined by what position he plays, but what he does in the batter's box.
Yeah. And for the record, I love Bo Bichette. I mean, I love the bat. I think he'll be at least an above average second baseman. Yeah, from what we saw in limited time, he might even be an elite second baseman for a chunk of time right now coming up. No, Kratz?
I mean, that's fine. I mean, you have the best second baseman in the game defensively playing shortstop. So when you talk about the most elite second baseman right now defensively, that's a big pair of shoes to fill. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
But what a great guy to learn from. I mean, if he's in the organization, you're talking about a guy who,
made that transition.
Made the transition from second to short to second. Those guys working together in tandem could be something special. But I also understand in the Blue Jays situation, if they don't bring him back, they have a pretty darn good player in Ernie Clement, who isn't the caliber player as Bo Bichette. He is an elite defender. That is one thing he does. And, the guy just set the record in the postseason for most hits in the postseason. Obviously the clutch factor, the swagger, the super utility ability. So these are all factors that potentially could be working against Bo Bichette and the position change and also having internal candidates. But, when I think about the Blue Jays, I think about Vladdy and Bo doing it together, finishing the job.
Ernie Clement was insane in the playoffs, and I'm excited to see a full season of the extra swag and confidence that he got from just abusing pitching all across October, right? Just they couldn't figure him out. The best pitching, they could not figure out how to get him off, how to get him out. I mean, he was on base like half the freaking postseason. Just an incredible performance from Ernie Clement. So I'm with you there. Yeah, they've got good problems right now, the Blue Jays. All right, let's hit a little spice coming up.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. Alex Rodriguez did not end his relationship with the Yankees on a high note. Lots of turbulence throughout that one, and he is taking it out on them. Is he right or wrong, though? And that's what we're going to go through right now. So he made an appearance on New York radio WFAN a few days ago, and he essentially said that the hitting philosophy for the Yankees is absolutely broken. That's a quote, absolutely broken. And he was referring to Anthony Volpe as an example. I'll read the quote and then we'll get reactions here. A-Rod said, Volpe really is an incredible young man with a great family, and the organization has fallen in love with him. But at some point, the numbers don't lie, right? You have 167 strikeouts rookie season, 156 2024, 150 last season. That's his first 3 years. And here's a young man that the biggest way he can impact winning is with his number one tool, and that's his legs, but we've taken his legs away. And by what I mean by that is, here's a young man who has stolen over 50 bases in the minor leagues. He stole 18 last year, and it's hard to impact winning teams when you're striking out 150 times and you're hitting 212. A-Rod continues. So I think if you zoom out, it's an organization hitting philosophy that is absolutely broken, and until they fix it, I don't think they win big. Now remember, Volpe had offseason surgery now for a partial tear in his left shoulder. He played the whole year. Apparently, he was dealing with that since May. It sounds like Caballero is going to be the starting shortstop until Volpe returns. But do you think, KP, that there is a problem here with how they have developed a young man who was one of the top prospects in the sport and has essentially put up the same numbers on offense over the first 3 seasons of his career?
Sure. I mean, I'd like to defer to Kratzy because he played for the organization, and I know, there's been some change in, hitting coaches probably since you've been there, but I don't know anything about the Yankees hitting philosophy. So I wish he would have potentially, maybe given some context of what that hitting philosophy is. I could speak on the teams that I played for, the hitting coaches that I played for, the Toronto Blue Jays, who I spent a lot of time with, and it's been kind of public knowledge, kind of what their hitting philosophy is. I don't know anything about the Yankees hitting philosophy. I know Aaron Judge's hitting philosophy because, his hitting coach, his outside hitting coach is, the most talked about hitting coach in the game. But I don't really know anything about it. But if you look at the numbers and what A-Rod is saying, I don't totally disagree with what he's saying. But at the end of the day, it's also hard for someone who's been retired, out of the game, out of the organization, to kind of point figures at the organization. Some of it has to, fall on the back of the player. If I'm Anthony Volpe and I understand my strength as a guy who can get on base and could run and steal bases, I have to figure out a way to strike out less. But it's hard for me to say that their organizational philosophy is broken when I don't even know what it is.
As a player, you're always looking to improve. As a organization, you're always looking for your players to improve. For A-Rod to say this without having spent a day in the cage with Anthony Volpe or even a week during the season with him, I feel like it's kind of weak. I feel like it's a weak comment because you want him to decrease his strikeouts. Okay, he went 167, 156. I'm sure that's going down to 150. Do you want him to drop it by 50 strikeouts? Look across the game. Who's doing that? Nobody's doing that. Okay? So to me, he's making small incremental changes that haven't happened to the extent that maybe a player like A-Rod thinks they should be made. It's not quite as easy to naturally change your production at the plate as some people think it is. He's still 24 years old. I went through a bunch of different numbers, and my comp for him, and I had this backed up by a big league scout in Major League Baseball, and he agreed with me, Dansby Swanson. You look at Dansby Swanson. Everybody knows who Dansby Swanson is now. He's won 2 Gold Gloves later in his career. But his first 3 years, very arguably, Volpe has had better years. He's had more power. He's stolen way more bases. And he already has a Gold Glove that Dansby took 6 years, I think 5 or 6 years to get. I think Dansby Swanson's a great player. I saw Dansby Swanson early in his career playing shortstop at a young age of 22 years old and learning to hit in the big leagues. Sometimes that's what it takes. It takes time to learn to hit in the big leagues. Is this a big year for Volpe? Absolutely. Do I think he took a step back last year? No, I don't, because nobody knows how bad the shoulder was. I talked to some people that were on the big league team, and he was playing with it the whole time. And he didn't really have a dip in his production. He essentially has stayed the same. So if he was playing through an injury, to me, maybe that's a little bit of an improvement. This is a big year. His 4th year was when Dansby Swanson took that next step. I think Volpe's ceiling could be higher than Dansby Swanson's, and I don't think it's all titled to strikeouts. To me, I think it's the consistency to reach his peak, to reach his top ability, because you look back at 2024 in the playoffs, he was lights out. He wasn't the guy in the lineup that everyone was worried about, but he showed spurts of hitting really well against quality pitching, which you're always seeing in the playoffs. So how can he take an entire season and really, for me, mitigate those low times, mitigate those 0 for 19s, those 1 for 31s where he almost looks lost. I don't know what that is. I'm not in there with his work every day. You know what, KP, you might be a different type of hitter than I was. If somebody's constantly in my ear, you got to change this, change that, change this, change that, change this. You're going to be cooked. But some guys are like, oh, I got to always be changing. I remember Josh Bell. He's a hitter that's gone ups and downs, ups and downs. He's always changing his stance, everything. Like some guys just need to stick with one thing and go get it. I don't think Anthony Volpe is as bad as the New York media, New York fans, and A-Rod in this situation is saying. I think he is at a situation, he's at a turning point in his career. Is he going to be a $200 million shortstop or $160 million shortstop? Or is he going to be a guy that kind of flounders around in the big leagues and makes a nice comeback from his shoulder surgery that he had this offseason? It's not going to be easy.
Yeah. As you were talking about it, I started thinking about someone that I know really well in myself. You know, obviously I didn't come up as young as he did, but I think what people need to understand is Anthony Volpe came up as a positional need for the New York Yankees. They knew that his glove was ready, and he went out and proved that he can play elite shortstop in the biggest market in baseball. And sometimes you get caught up in that as a player, much like I did. I had a little bit more success with the bat early on in my career than Anthony Volpe is, but we're also 2 different types of hitters. I had the God-given ability to just put the ball in play, and I hated striking out. So that was never a thing. But you talk about those 0 for 19s or those 0 for 31s. When you don't have good plate discipline and you don't have the elite hand-eye coordination to just put the ball in play or the willingness to just put the ball in play, you go through these extended periods of time without getting on base. So he's much like, to your point, he's at a turning point in his career and maybe a little bit of time away from the team rehabbing his shoulder. He'll be able to fix this. But I got caught up so much in the situation early on in my career that I was only here to play defense that, not to say I didn't work in the cage, but I didn't value it as much because all they ever told me was just go play defense, go play defense, play defense. And I had to take it upon myself to go outside of the team during the offseason and go find different hitting coaches and find different things and go do different research to try to improve myself on my own. And my last point, a guy like A-Rod, who is able to, go publicly and make these conversations, what he should have done is he can call Anthony Volpe and he can fly him out to Miami and go work with him or fly to him or do whatever he wants. And if he believes that he's someone that could help him and help the organization, People do that all the time. It's no disrespect to the people that they have in their organization, but in the offseason, you are free. You are pretty much a free agent in terms of whoever the hell you want to go see hitting wise. A-Rod could have been that guy for Volpe, but instead he decided to kind of publicly shit on him. And if I'm Anthony Volpe, I don't know if I'm picking up that phone call. And, my last point is it's very difficult for a player of Alex Rodriguez's caliber. And I haven't really played with anyone of an Alex Rodriguez's caliber, but I've played with guys that were MVPs, that names are retired in the stadiums that they played in. And it was always a tough conversation for them to relate to me. They had no idea how difficult baseball was for me. Yes, we play on the same field, but their skill set was so much greater than mine. The game came so much easier to them. So when I would struggle, where I would ask these questions or how do I do this, it's hard for them to relate. When you have a guy of Anthony Volpe's skill set and talent and a guy like A-Rod's, it's a really hard conversation to have. That's why I feel like some of the best hitting coaches that I've had in the game were not the best players. They're just very relatable. They can understand, guys like me that go through extended periods of, struggles in their career, how it's relatable.
That is so true, and that's why some superstars don't ever make good managers or even good hitting coaches. I had a hitting coach one time that was like, he hit 300 in the big leagues, and he was like, when you see the ball away, you just take that ball and you just go bam, and you hit the right field. And then when they throw one in, you just go bam, and you hit the left field. And sometimes they'll throw the breaking ball to you and go, you just wait for it a little bit longer, just go bam, right up the middle, and you're like, what? I can't even do that off the machine. So yeah, you're exactly right. My one last point is for all you WAR people out there. In Volpe's first 3 years, even if he has have no idea what he's going to do this year, compared to Dansby Swanson, because I feel like it's a good comparison. Maybe people will disagree with me, but in his first 3 years, he already has a higher WAR, a higher wins above replacement than Dansby Swanson does through his first 4 years. Dansby Swanson had a 4.2 WAR in his first year in his first 4 years based on wins above replacement, based on Baseball References WAR. And Volpe already has accumulated a 8.3 WAR. I know WAR's not everything, and I know Yankee fans are going to clap back at me, but I want you to truly step back and look at other guys, not Derek Jeter. Sorry, don't compare the greatest shortstop of your organization's history to Anthony Volpe. Compare equal to equal players and maybe get behind your guy just a little bit, because I think he's better than everybody gives him credit for.
Neil in the chat goes, did he just say all you poor people out there? No, WAR wins above replacement.
WAR! I got to enunciate better. WAR. W-A-R.
I think you did.
Wins above replacement.
He might have been cracking a joke and it worked.
No, he was talking to you guys too, the poor people too. He was talking to poor people too.
All you poor people out there, listen up. If you
KP,
want a $300 million contract, ask someone else about
compared to you. I'm one of the poor people, KP. Okay.
Hey, and that's much to the point. Compared to A-Rod, I'm very poor too. So there is scales in this thing. There's financial scales, there's talent scales, and I don't think the average person understands the difference between the best players in the clubhouse and me and Erik Kratz is exponential.
My one point from everything that you guys said that I want to bounce back with is it appears as if A-Rod used Volpe as the example, but he was trying to make a greater point about the development process with the Yankees. So then that part is valid. There hasn't been the development from the Yankees like there has been, say, from the Dodgers over the past 10, 15 years.
Okay.
That's fair. That's fair. But I'm also thinking about the Yankees have most recently, I mean, aside from Aaron Judge is homegrown, but they're usually going out and acquiring players or signing players. So there's not a ton of player development going on. When you finally have one of your own and he comes up, and to Kratz' point, he's an 8 WAR player in his first 4 years is pretty good. He hasn't maybe made the adjustments needed to be the offensive player they think he can be. But, the Dodgers have always done a really good job of, yes, they go out and get the best players too, but they always kind of leave a couple holes on their roster for, players to kind of come up and develop. So, I mean, yeah, maybe that point is accurate that there could be a little bit more player development going on, but it never feels like you see those guys get to the big leagues with the Yankees.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's part of the point. The development process there is not producing stars. Why? That's unfair, Kratz? I'm not saying they're bad at it. I'm just saying they're not elite at it. They're not elite at it.
Okay. But they're elite enough for teams to trade for their pitching prospects. I think they make their pitching prospects available to be able to get a Juan Soto, to be able to trade for the guys. Like, they're not afraid. Are they calling them up to the big leagues? I mean, last year, who were two of the best hitters in that lineup? Aaron Judge and Ben Rice. People are going to say, you can't use Aaron Judge because he's – I know that's the narrative, and I know that we got kind of roasted before because of some of the stuff that we had said, but it can be a year-to-year discussion.
What did we get roasted for? 2 years ago when we had a former Yankees minor leaguer on who said stuff was messed up, and then half the current team sent him messages agreeing. I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I think they've made changes since then, and the best organizations evolve every year, right? The best organizations take feedback from players and they incorporate it into what they do. I think there was a time period where the Yankees were valuing certain metrics more than other teams, and that overhyped some of their prospects. We've gone over this before, right? Mm-hmm. And many of those guys didn't end up panning out. You want to talk about a bad trade with the Rays? There have been many bad trades made with other teams in the Yankees where Cashman's ripped them off and he's done a nice job. And those prospects ended up being nothing. I mean, there are a lot of them. We could do a whole segment on probably 10 trades over the past 10 years where you're like, wow, look who they got. They gave up nothing. They're one of the kings of that. And that's part of the game too. They did a nice job.
Isn't that right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do as an organization? Isn't that what teams that want to win? I think the biggest thing with the Yankees is fans see all the banners in the rafters. And I think the gap used to be like this with the Yankees. I think they were innovative, ahead. I don't think they necessarily have a broken system. I just think the gap is like this now. I think they are a playoff team that needs to be able to find that value around the edges because the other teams have closed that gap. Their analytic system has been the gap has been closed. They're finding value. And I think maybe there's been times when they've gone out and said, we want everybody that hits the ball the hardest, and that's all we're going to go for. So I think during that time period, when you picked up Joey Gallo, and then they had already gotten Giancarlo Stanton, and they had Donaldson. Judge, like they just had all the guys that hit the ball the hardest. I think they've started to realize they need a Cody Bellinger that's going to be able to play first base, center field. They need to keep Aaron Judge in right field because that's where his value is. So I think they're making adjustments. I just think the gap has changed, and that's why you're not going to see teams consistently win like they won in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Let me ask you something about I was thinking about Trent Grisham the year before. Awful year. I know he didn't play that much, but then he went out and had the type of year he had. Is that more about Trent Grisham going out and making the adjustments, or is that something internally that the Yankees were able to do? Because it's easy to talk about, the players that they didn't help, but maybe they helped a guy like Trent Grisham, and some of it could be on Anthony Volpe. Maybe he's not listening. I don't know. I've never been in that clubhouse. I've never been in that organization, so I don't really know. But I thought that was kind of a good point. And lastly, to your point, also the financial gap is decreased a lot. The Yankees used to be able to go out and spend way more than everyone else. That gap has shrunk significantly too.
Yes. I don't know what the exact number is, but there was a point where they were probably 10 not anymore. Not even close. I mean, they're not even at the top. They're close. They're usually top 5-ish, but they're not spending as much, they're not spending way more than the top team. And off the field, they will do everything they can, but they're not the only ones. There's even small market teams that are smart and can spend on that front, right? You can spend a few $1 million on the development side and it makes a huge difference. So it's a great topic, but Thanks to A-Rod for blasting them and giving us a good 15 minutes here to chop it up. Now, let's get to breaking news. Here come the Buccos. 2 years, $29 million for Ryan O'Hearn. The Pittsburgh Pirates keep working on what was a brutal offense in 2025, and they're doing it. They're making moves right now. This contract also includes $500,000 in performance bonuses in each season for O'Hearn. Good job by FT insider Robert Murray on that case. Okay, KP, Brandon Lau was just acquired by this team and on our show yesterday. They potentially added 30 home run pop and a veteran. They have the top prospect in the sport in Connor Griffin, according to Baseball America. He should be ready at some point this season. Now they added Ryan O'Hearn, who's consistently been a very, very solid bat, above average bat in baseball over the last few years. And the glove was better than ever this past season. So you can get some first base time out of him. What do we think about the Pirates heading into 2026? Are they at a potential playoff contender level yet?
Before I answer that question, all I could think about when that news came out and I saw on our message, breaking news, I didn't want to peek, see what it was. I wanted to be surprised. But the streak is over. The first multi-year deal since Ivan Nova. And what year was that? 2017?
16.
The Pittsburgh Pirates? 2016. The Pittsburgh Pirates have done it. So I want to give them a round of applause for signing someone up for more than 1 year. Would have never thought it was going to be Ryan O'Hearn, but good for them. You know, talk about another guy who, you know, came up, struggled a little bit, you know, kind of bounced around, found a home in Baltimore, kind of really turned his career around, you know, ultimately got traded at the deadline. But I love seeing stories like this. I love seeing guys that kind of on topic with what we were just talking about that can improve, that can make themselves better baseball players. But to answer your question, I think the Pirates are doing something. I think they're doing something. I think their offense is much improved with some of the additions that they have done. I think they'll be able to go out and play good defense. I think they got a great leader. And obviously their pitching staff is legit. I think they need a little bit more help at the back of their bullpen. And I think they can make some noise in that division.
I love it. I love it. First team that called me up, Pirates. So I always have a place they always have a place in my heart. They've gone through a lot of things. Scott, you asked, is this enough yet? I don't know. I think they had after the second half last year, I think they had the sixth best defense. Everybody knows what they're bringing with the starting rotation. You want a healthy year out of Jared Jones. You want a full year out of some of their prospects. You got Harrington. You have guys coming up. Obviously, you have Paul Skeens. And to me, the question is, if you think they're a playoff team in the NL Central, if they have enough to make the playoffs because of the Ryan O'Hearn signing, all you have to do is look in the AL Central and say, are the Pirates better than what the Tigers were 2 years ago? And if you believe that, because you have the other best pitcher in the game, the Tigers had Terry Skubal, the Pirates have Paul Skeens. If you believe that this lineup is better than the Tigers lineup, then you have to believe, even though the National League is tougher, they still play in NL Central, that the Pirates have a chance to make the playoffs. And I think Ryan O'Hearn's signing is amazing. I think he is a prime example of what we talked about. When he was with the Royals, he didn't play much. He was shuttled up and down from AAA. When he was up in the big leagues, he'd get a little bit of a stint, and then, it didn't work out. Okay, you're gonna face righties. Salvi's gonna still catch, and then days when it's lefties, we're gonna have someone else play first base. Salvi's gonna play first, so we can have more of a right-handed lineup. He went to Baltimore. He kind of emerged. He got about 350 at-bats, and then he got 400 some at-bats. And then last year he gets 500. And he's always had above an 800 slugging percentage and a plus OPS. So to me, this is a good signing for a guy that needs to and will play every day for the Pirates.
This is going to sound ridiculous, but it's not. You know how you sometimes say a player's like diet, whatever, or so-and-so light? It's almost like take Big Papi as Coke, and then it's like Coke Zero is Ryan O'Hearn. Big Papi didn't get much PT with Minnesota in the Midwest, moves over to the Red Sox. Obviously was more of like a 160-ish OPS plus guy on average, and O'Hearn's more of like a 130-ish. But my point is, Ryan O'Hearn has been a consistently awesome bat, like all-star level with his bat. Here, I was looking at the roster real quick for the Pirates because when we entered the offseason, I was like, they have to replace, I would say, 5 or 6 spots. And if you want to give one spot to the top prospect in the sport, that's fine. But still, Ryan O'Hearn immediately enters the lineup as their best hitter. He's the best hitter in the lineup, right? Isn't he going to hit 3 or 4 for them?
Do you know who they had hitting fourth? And I say this all the time. I went to a game in April. You know who their fourth hitter was? Behind Brian Reynolds, because people are going to be like, oh, Brian Reynolds, he had a terrible year. You know who was hitting behind him? Emmanuel Valdez was hitting fourth. Sorry, it's a big league player. It's not a 4-hitter. I batted behind Edwin Encarnacion. I hit fourth one time in my career, hitting behind Eddie. I should never hit behind Edwin Encarnacion. Emmanuel Valdez should never be a big league team's 4th hitter, and now they have a legitimate person that, to me, this is a signing that raises all ships. This is a signing that helps maybe O'Neal Cruz take that next step. I mean, I think he's a big-time underachiever. I think he needs to take that next step where his talent and his, as Andrew McCutchen called him, the avatar, takes that next step. Well, how's he supposed to take the next step if everybody's attacking him like he's the superstar in the lineup? How's Brian Reynolds supposed to use his elite power from both sides of the plate if everybody's attacking him like he's the best hitter in the lineup? This takes a little bit of pressure off those guys and maybe helps them take that next step.
I think it makes it more attractive for other players to want to go there now, too. You're talking about kind of raising the bottom up. You know, we talked about this before Thanksgiving, and I know it's McCutchen's job until he doesn't want anymore. But I think a guy like Marcell Ozuna would fit so good in this lineup. Brandon Lau also just recently traded over there too. Brian Reynolds, I know, is a switch hitter. O'Neal Cruz, switch hitter. Ryan O'Hearn, left-handed. Feels like they need a right-handed bat kind of in the middle of that. And I think Marcell Ozuna, talk about, you know, making players better around him, like an O'Neal Cruz. And as you know, Kratzy, it's a real thing, Latino to Latino. Like there's a comfort level there. There's a communication that it's just hard. You know, they've come from the same places. They've been through the same things. Marcell Ozuna is a legendary figure when it comes to Dominican players. Like it's such a voice that O'Neal Cruz can listen to. And I think, you know, going out and making a signing like this is making it more attractive for players who maybe only commanding a 1-year deal, maybe coming off a bounce back year, could kind of see the future could kind of be here now. They have an opportunity to win. You think about the division they play in, obviously the Milwaukee Brewers are still there, the Chicago Cubs are there, but after that, it's kind of, you know, anyone's division. And, you know, when you look at the way the lineups are constructed, name for name, you know, I know the Milwaukee Brewers went out and won, you know, 90 some odd games, best record in the National League. But I don't think the names on the paper throughout the performance, the names on the paper are not that much different when you compare these two teams.
Wow. Hey, Cubs fans too, look out. Here come the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah, you look on paper at your Ozuna idea and you're like, oh, is there room for all of them? But it is true. You're getting a righty bat. I mean, first base DH right now is probably a Spencer Horwitz, Ryan O'Hearn shuffle. They're both lefties. I know they like both of those guys, but they're both lefties. So you add Ozuna, you give yourself a little more depth and flexibility with the lineup. They acquired the password, remember, from the Red Sox. That's another righty bat to be able to at least handle lefties, if not more, heading into this season. Lau is positioned at second base every day. I know Reynolds is coming off a down year, but he's still a productive player. He should play every day. Shortstops, where hopefully Connor Griffin emerges. Nick Gonzalez can probably hold it down for now. O'Neal Cruz in center field. They have some work to do over at third base too. Who's playing third? Right now it's Jared Triolo. Maybe Gino Suarez. What about Gino Suarez?
On a 1-year deal, when everyone else has gone home and taken their ball and gone home. I honestly, that would be. I really think the Pirates have done it here. I really think they have done it, and I don't know that they need it Eugenio Suarez, but it definitely doesn't hurt. He knows the division. They know him in the division because he's killed them for years with the Reds. Like, to me, I think that would be an amazing signing, but we got to give credit where credit's due. And the Pirates, with this, to me, you don't make this deal without saying Connor Griffin's our starting shortstop in the big leagues next year. Nothing against Nick Gonzalez. But what Connor Griffin's done, you can bring him into a situation where now you have veteran Brian Reynolds. You have veteran Brandon Lau. You have veteran Ryan O'Hearn. All guys that I know are stand-up dudes. Joey Bart is going to be your catcher. He's been a prospect who busts, so maybe they can, have conversations about how, hey, you know what, as a rookie, it didn't work out for me with the Giants. I can kind of help you through this. To me, they're giving him a soft landing spot for a guy who will probably never have a soft landing spot because you're the number one prospect in baseball, and his mental makeup's there. To me, I think we call DK up Don Kelly and say, push for this man. Kind of similar to how the Padres in 2019 with the Erik Hosmer, Manny Machado, those guys pushed for Fernando Tatis to make the team out of spring training. I think that is a huge, huge piece, and the Pirates have done an amazing job without giving out, the $150 million to a Kyle Schwarber in these cases.
Right. They did make an attempt there, but now they're able to spread that money out amongst what could be maybe a couple other players that enter the mix here for the Pirates. It sounds like they can still be involved.
How about a name like Luis Rendifo, who, when I was with him in 23, had a really good year. He had a bit of a down year last year. Could play third base. Switch hitter, proven hitter. Could hit kind of towards the top of the lineup, bottom lineup, ability to steal bases. Like, you're talking about 1-year deals, kind of, give him $8-10 million to kind of just go out there, play third base every day, kind of, allow him to re-up his value, meaning between 2022 and 24, 273, 111 WRC plus, only struck out 16% of the times. Like, I don't think they're in position to go out and sign a, Suarez, because I don't think Suarez has taken a 1-year deal. What did he hit? Over 50 homers last year? He's not taking a 1-year deal.
Yeah, but he wasn't, KP, he's not as valued amongst the front offices, and I think the trade deadline showed that. A lot of front offices almost looked at that as, I don't want to say a fluke, but something that's not going to be repeated.
I would imagine if 1-year deals were out there, deals were out there for him, I would see Seattle as more of a fit for him. He's obviously beloved there, went back there. If all things are equal, Seattle's in a much different position than the Pittsburgh Pirates are in terms of winning right now. But, I think to Kratz's point, if you just have slight upgrades at all these positions, it kind of raises the floor for this team.
I'm with you. They have to overpay, at least to an extent. My guess is that O'Hearn's best offer was, say, $224, $25, and then you make a call and go, hey, he's yours if you make it $29. Something like that. Do you guys agree? I think based on the past for the Pirates.
I'm trying to think how people would view them right now. Obviously you would make that case with a place like Sacramento, but I don't know if Pittsburgh is that undesirable as a place to live. Kratzy,
no,
you live kind of near there and you played there.
It's not a place to live. It's just the organization and how it's been run for 6 years or so. And there is still a chance that it doesn't go well and then you end up getting moved again. They haven't played in these waters in a long time. Maybe O'Hearn's not the best example because he's probably looking for the best deal. Kratz, this is his one time to strike.
Yes, and I would say maybe, and we'll ask O'Hearn, remember, put it down in your notes. Scotty always has a big, awesome notes section.
Yep.
But when Ryan O'Hearn comes on, we got to make sure we ask him, did the Brandon Lau signing or trade change his mind? Did it push it across the line for him? I would think maybe it wasn't necessarily an extra $5 million. Maybe it was. Maybe there was just, that extra cash. $5 million is a lot of money, no matter how much you're making. But, without Brandon Lau, are you like, oh, man, like that's just a lot of weight to carry for this lineup? Brandon Lau is now on the team. Does that push it across? Or you're having those conversations and saying, hey, wait and see. Wait and see what we're going to do as an organization. Wait and see the moves we're going to make. We're going to call Connor Griffin up this year. We really feel like he is ready to go based on what he shows us in spring training. And you're like, as a free agent, you're like, I don't know. I've heard this about the Pirates, heard that about the Pirates. And then the Brandon Lau trade goes through. Oh, well, that's kind of a nice deal. I kind of do want to play with Paul Skeens. I kind of do want to see what Brian Reynolds has out there. Connor Griffin seems like the real deal. I loved watching Jake Mangum play. Like, who knows what goes into it, but maybe that Brandon Lau trade pushed it over for him. Like, hey, they are really making moves, and they might have some more moves that they promised Ryan O'Hearn that they're going to make. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be – well, they're now not going to be in play for Okamoto. He's going to be at first. So they were linked to him, and maybe those conversations were happening, and they went the O'Hearn direction. O'Hearn, Horwitz, I don't think they're going to add another guy who's primarily a first baseman. But third base and outfield.
Didn't Okamoto play third?
I think he plays third and first, but you feel better about him at third.
Murakama was more of the first DH in the defense, and strikeouts were the issue. Okamoto, I thought, was a third baseman, and I thought a very serviceable third baseman. And think about the production that they got at third base for the last 3 years in Ke'Bryan Hayes. Now they're going to have a tough time. That pitching staff, which was really good, is going to have a tough time, having a third baseman there that's not Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's a Gold Glove third baseman. So that will be a change. But if Okamoto, to me, I think Pittsburgh is a great landing spot.
Yep, both for Okamoto. First and third.
Let's also not forget there's only so many first base jobs available too. Who knows what he had out there. This could have been the best opportunity for him. Could have guaranteed him the most playing time. But I don't think it's an unattractive place. I mean, I've only ever been there as a visiting player. Beautiful stadium. I know you kind of hear in the industry, how the Pirates have done things in the past, or the way that they do things, or their lack of being able to go out and spend money. But sometimes when you get a generational talent and you win the lottery and you get the first overall pick and you get a guy like Paul Skeens and he goes out and what he's done in his first 2 years, maybe it changes the way the organization is planning on acting moving forward. And maybe it changes the way that you as a player feel about the organization. If I'm playing right now, I want a front row seat to watch Paul Skeens play for at least the next 4 years that he's signed up to be a Pittsburgh Pirate.
Agreed.
Yeah, and the Central got tougher. The team that I think has to be looking around and making sure that they do something is the Cubs. I mean, they're going to lose Kyle Tucker, and the Pirates are getting better. The Brewers aren't going anywhere. There's a few wins. Sometimes the Cubs just pummel the Pirates. They're not going to be as easy to pummel this year. So something that the Cubs should keep in mind. If the Brewers win the division, there might not be a wild card team, or it could be a team like Pittsburgh giving the Cubs a run for one of those spots.
I think that's a fair point. When you have a lot of these, or at least a bottom feeder in your division, the teams like the Cubs can go out and feel like, we play them X amount of times a year. We're going to just beat them, majority of the time. Kind of sets your bar at that, 86 to 90 wins. As these teams get better, maybe there isn't a wild card team that comes out of the Central anymore. Maybe there's only one winner because the gap is shrinking a little bit. It becomes a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, and the Reds haven't done much, but they're pitching good, so they're not going to be a pushover next year. Really, the Cardinals could be the pushover of all teams. That would be the bottom feeder coming into next season. All right, let's hit BetMGM, and then there's a couple other moves we'll hit and slap. Last Leo of the year. We just had him on the show. Pete Alonso, over under 37.5 home runs. Minus 125 to win a hundo at the over. It's even money plus a hundo on the under. Kratz already hit this yesterday, so for timing purposes, since we're getting late, KP, are you on board with Kratz? Yeah.
I was going to look up I don't even need to look up, what his homers per year is, but it's over.
Also,
I mean, it's a great place to
Queens
hit.
versus Baltimore?
Great place to hit.
Yeah. And, I mean, man's going to be on a mission. First year off of that. Should be a better ballpark for him to hit dingers, right?
Oh, entirely. I know they moved the left field back, but it doesn't
Now
matter.
they moved it up again. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Where he hits baseballs, it doesn't matter really what stadium is in, as long as the wind isn't a factor. But I love his ability, and not only just Camden Yards where he's playing, but that entire division he's playing. I think he's going to feast. I think he's going to feast in the AL East. I know there's some really good pitching there, but Pete Alonso is a good hitter, and there's no ballpark that could hold him in. So, I mean, I'm taking the over.
Yeah, so is Kratz. So am I. It's actually one of my favorites right now on the futures board. And one last little promo to throw out there for our last show of the year. If you've got a BetMGM account, you can hit up a boost pack, score bigger payouts. And once you've got that boost pack, you can pick any NBA matchup, add it to your bet slip, activate the boost token. It's a same game parlay, odds boost, or both. And if your bet hits with a token activated, you don't just win, you win bigger with boosted payouts. Gambling problem or concern, there's help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. A couple quick hitters that we didn't have time for earlier. Sean Newcomb signed with the White Sox. They're handing out money now, $4.5 million on a one-year contract. Jeff Passan talked about how he was one of the most highly sought left-handed relievers on the market. So good for the White Sox. That helps improve a little bit at the margins. If Newcomb looks great, you can usually flip him at the deadline for a prospect, and you also end up only paying, 60% or so of that contract if the White Sox aren't playoff relevant. These are the kind of moves that I think you should be making left and right if you're the White Sox. The way that you can catch up quickly, and we've gone over this many times, Kevin, is how the White Sox should be able to spend their way out of a rebuild a little bit quicker by making signings like this and acquiring more prospects.
No doubt. I think I also read that he's going to compete for a starting rotation job too. I don't think he's signed there to be a reliever. I think I had read that he's going to have a chance to compete in the rotation. And obviously, if it doesn't work out, his fallback, he can be a legit left-handed weapon out of any bullpen. But yeah, I think teams that are in a position like the White Sox are in that need to, do some things, you go out and sign these players that, are only really commanding one-year deals, given opportunity to play. You have spots on your roster to fill. Let them go out and play. If you got to overpay a little bit, you're only paying 60% of it because you're not a playoff team, and go out and acquire some prospects.
Yep, I'm with you. Hey, and then last bit of news, and I truly think this was based off yesterday's show. I'm not saying this to be cocky or anything. We had Pete Alonso on the show yesterday, and one of our last questions was about how we haven't heard any news about him linked to the World Baseball Classic. He was part of that team last go-round. What pops up hours later? Bryce Harper announced as the first baseman for Team USA, or at least that he's joining Team USA. Pete was like, D-Row, call me. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, why aren't they calling Pete yet? Maybe they're waiting for Bryce to make a decision. Bryce didn't participate last go round. Not that Pete can't still join the team, but my guess is that there was a wait and see on Bryce first before they started exploring phone calls to Pete, Matt Olson, maybe Michael Busch, guys like that. So Kratz, the timing was impeccable. We've had all of these days on the calendar, and hours after our conversation and Pete's public call out that got a lot of play on social media, we get another member of the World Baseball Classic USA squad added, and a great one for the USA fans out there in Bryce Harper.
Don't think so highly of yourself, Scott. That you're making trendy moves. But yeah, 100%. Like it's time. It's time. Maybe a call was made. Hey, Bryce, how you feeling? Like, what's your move? Because I know Pete wants to play. I completely forgot. Honestly, like when he said it yesterday, my mind's going, okay, who's going to play first? You can't mess up first base as Team USA. I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, and I never thought of Bryce Harper. Like he's right here in my backyard, and I'm like, who's going to play first? And I thought of Matt Olson, and I'm like, man, there's no way. Like I haven't heard anything about Matt Olson, and then I never even thought of Bryce Harper. But good for Team USA. Look, you can find a spot. You can find a spot for Pete. You can even find a spot for Matt Olson. You can have all three of them. Bring them all. Like, just like he said in the movie, bring your green hat. Like we're going streaking in the quad. Win the tournament. Win the WBC.
You've got righty pop, lefty pop with those guys, first base, DH. We'll see how the rest of the roster shakes out. Pete might still be part of it, but I do think, Bryce saying, let's do this, had a little bit to do with oh, hey, yeah, it is December 23rd. I'd love to figure out where I'm going to be in March. Am I going to be just in spring training with the Orioles, or am I going to be spending some time in the World Baseball Classic? And two more orders of business, Kratz hats, and then a special shout out on the way out.
I mean, obviously I got my Santa hat on. There's no team on it.
What?
You guys are my team. There actually is a Phillies Santa hat that we have somewhere in the house, and it actually fits me a little bit better because it's a little bit larger. But it was a gift to my son, I think, years ago. But anyway, you guys are my Christmas gift. I don't need to ask for anything. I love having KP on the show. I love working with Scott every day. I love working with Gab and Claude and Jer and Mark and Michael sometimes, Justin, and if I'm forgetting somebody, Olivia, like everybody behind the scenes, even AJ, he's off gallivanting in Africa. But this FT is my Christmas gift, and I love it. And I love all the fans that are here. So everybody, Merry Christmas. Hanukkah just ended. Happy Hanukkah and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, well said. George and Vince and Sarah and so many more. Frankie. I mean, the list goes on and on behind the scenes. It's a big group, and they're awesome. And then we'll show one more tweet at the finish line. We don't ask for this often, but when it does get posted, we rarely show it on shows, and I'd like to do it a bit more frequently. Ref, one of our OGs in the chat, among many that we love in there in the YouTube live chat every day, said, apparently I'm the top 1% of Foul Territory viewers on YouTube. Group chat confirmed. We're all certified sickos. My wife thinks I have a problem. I think I have priorities. No regrets. Top 0.1%. Not just 1%, Ref. You showed us the screenshot. 0.1% of viewers. You watched 349 of our videos this year. That is dedication. We love you and all of the FT fam that has been watching us all year long. KP, great to have you as an addition to the team. Looking forward to a big year and more announcements in 2026. Have an awesome holiday. Have a few on me, or actually just put it on Santa's tab tonight, okay?
Put on Santa's tab. I got to say happy birthday to my mom, too. It's my mom's birthday today. Holidays are crazy. My dad's birthday is the day after Christmas, so this is like the official kickoff of the holiday season for us. So happy birthday, Mom. And love you guys. Thanks for having me. You guys have been a Christmas gift for me all along, allowing me to stay, in baseball. And I'm excited to get up in the morning and check my phone to kind of stay in the loop of baseball. And you guys have given me a great outlet. So thank you guys.
We love having you, dude.
And Happy New Year.
Your mom's got a birthday.
Yeah, it's today. I got to go see her.